Book 8, paragraphs 1 to 12 of On the Latin Language by Varro. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. On the Latin Language by Marcus Terentius Varro. Book 8. One book of arguments which are advanced against the existence of the principle of analogy. Speech is naturally divided into three parts, as I have shown in the previous books. Its first part is how names were imposed upon things. Its second, in what way the derivatives of these names have arrived at their differences. Its third, how the words, when united with one another reasoningly, express an idea. Having set forth the first part, I shall from here begin upon the second. As every offshoot is secondary by nature, because that vertical trunk from which it comes is primary, and it is therefore declined, so there is declension in words. Homo, man, is the vertical; hominis, mens, is the oblique, because it is declined from the vertical. From the manifold nature of this sort there are these causes of the differences: for what reason, and to what product, and in what way, in speaking, the words are declined. The first two of these I shall pass over briefly, for two reasons: because there will have to be a rehandling of the topics when I write of the stock of words, and because the third of them has numerous and extensive subdivisions of its own. Inflection has been introduced not only into Latin speech, but into the speech of all men, because it is useful and necessary. For if this system had not developed, we could not learn such a great number of words as we should have, for the possible forms into which they are inflected are numerically unlimited, nor from those which we should have learned would it be clear what relationship existed between them so far as their meanings were concerned. But as it is, we do see, for the reason that that which is the offshoot bears a similarity to the original. When legi, I have gathered, is inflected from lego, I gather, two things are clear at the same time, namely, that in some fashion the acts are said to be the same, and yet that their doing did not take place at the same time. But if, for the sake of a word, one of these two related ideas was called priamus, and the other hecuba, there would be no indication of the unity of idea which is clear in lego and legi, and in nominative priamus, dative priamo. As among men there are certain kinships, either through the males or through the clan, so there are among words. For as from an Emilius were sprung the men named Emilius, and the clan members of the name, so from the name of Aemilius were inflected the words in the noun clan. For from that name, which was imposed in the nominative case as Aemilius, were made Aemilii, Aemilium, Aemilios, Aemiliorum, and in this way also all the other words which are of this same line. The origins of words are therefore two in number, and no more, imposition and inflection. The one is as it were the spring, the other the brook. Men have wished that imposed nouns should be as few as possible, that they might be able to learn them more quickly. But derivative nouns they have wished to be as numerous as possible, that all might the more easily say those nouns which they need to use. In connection with the first class, a historical narrative is necessary, for except by outright learning such words do not reach us. For the other class, the second, a grammatical treatment is necessary, and for this there is need of a few brief maxims. For the scheme by which you have learned to inflect in the instance of one noun, you can employ in a countless number of nouns. Therefore, when new nouns have been brought into common use, the whole people at once utters their declined forms without any hesitation. Moreover, those who have freshly become slaves and on purchase become members of a large household quickly inflect the names of all their fellow slaves in the oblique cases, provided only they have heard the nominative. If they sometimes make mistakes, it is not astonishing. Even those who first imposed names upon things perhaps made some slips in some instances, for they are supposed to have desired to designate things individually, that from these inflection might be made to indicate plurality, as homines, men, from homo, man. They are supposed to have desired that male children be designated in such a way that from these the females might be indicated by inflection, as the feminine Terentia from the masculine Terentius, and that similarly from the names which they set in the nominative case there might be other forms to which they could arrive by inflection. But they are supposed to have been unable to hold fast to these principles in everything, because the plural form scopai denotes either one or two brooms, and aquila, eagle, denotes both the male and the female, and vis, force, is used for the nominative and for an oblique case of the word. Why such words are not so much at fault as men think, it is in most instances not hard to explain, but it is not necessary to do so at this time, for it is not how they have been able to arrive at the words, but how they wish to express themselves, that is of import for the subject which is before us, inasmuch as genitive scoparum can be no less easily derived from the plural scopai, which they did impose on the object as its name, than if they had given it the name scopa in the singular, and made the genitive scopai from this, and other words likewise. The reason, I say, why they made these inflected forms from the names which they had set upon things, is that which I have shown. The next point is for me to sketch by classes, but briefly, the forms at which they have wished to arrive by inflection, or have not wished to arrive. For there are two classes of words, one fruitful, which by inflection produces from itself many different forms, as for example, lego, I gather; legi, I have gathered; legam, I shall gather, and similarly other words; and the second class, which is barren, which produces nothing from itself, as for example, et, and; jam, now; vix, hardly; cras, tomorrow; magis, more; cur, why. In those things whose use was simple, the inflection of the name also was simple, just as in a house where there is only one slave there is need of only one slave name, but in a house where there are many slaves there is need of many such names. Therefore also in those things which are names, because the differentiations of the words are several, there are more offshoots, and in those things which are connectives and join words, because there was no need for them to be inflected into several forms, the words generally have but one form, for with one and the same tongue you can fasten a man or a horse, or anything else, whatever it is, which can be fastened to something else. Thus, for example, we say in our talking Tullius et and Antonius were consuls. With that same et we can link together any set of two consuls, or, to put it more strongly, any and all names, and even all words, while all the time that one syllabled prop word et remains unchanged. Therefore, under nature's guidance it has come about that we should not think that there are inflected forms from all these names which have been set upon things. In the word classes in which inflections may develop, the parts of speech are two, unless, following Dion, we divide into three divisions the ideas which are indicated by words. One division which indicates also case, a second which indicates also time, a third which indicates neither. Of these Aristotle says that there are two parts of speech, nouns, like homo, man, and equus, horse, and verbs, like legit, gathers, and currit, runs. End of paragraphs 1 to 12 of Book VIII of On the Latin Language, by Varro.